lot of even watching how the clan interacts with each other, because what I've learned from my brothers is, we've all known each other for 40 plus years. But what's funny about them is you can never color outside the lines. And what that means is, like Ghostface in particular, he's not someone like Ghost is very regimented. He's not somebody that you could approach sideways. He's not somebody that you could joke with. A lot of them are like that. And as long as we know each other, you have to deal with them in a certain kind of way. And then after being with each other for a couple of hours, you may be able to relax a little bit. But it's a constant lesson in being able to deal with poise, composure, decorum, and respect for other people. And what I learned, I bring back into what it is that I do. And I see the lack of decorum in other circles. I see where there's a breakdown in communication or character. Character is a big thing. I'm very big on character, Blue. And when I see that there's a lack in character, or I see when people fail, or people don't keep their word, or people don't put specificity on being on time or timely. If you say we're going to start at 2 o'clock and we're not there, and you don't do anything to make up for that, all of these things go back into your inability to manifest or speak things into existence. So when people, like, I use words of power always. When I'm going to sleep, there are 5 words of power that I say out loud. Sometimes I just say it in my head, but it happens. And it allows me to open up the doorways on the astral planes, the hyperdimensions, in the duat, and sometimes the divine worlds, and look at what is going on there. If I cursed and used profanity, I would not be able to utilize words of power, because it takes the power out of the pristinity and the octane of jettisoning your consciousness onto these domains. If I said something that I didn't mean, or I beguiled people, or if I was dishonest in any way, I would not have the power to do some of the things that I've illustrated to my community and to my people to build trust. If I did anything to tarnish the trust and the respect or the belief, I would not be able to be a divine avatar of other gods who have entrusted me with disseminating certain information in a responsible fashion. I used to get on Brother Planet, we would talk sometimes, and I would say, you're putting out a lot of stuff, and some of the things that you're teaching about and you're putting it out there publicly, there is, there's a repercussion, because you can't teach calculus, base theory, thermodynamics to a kindergarten mind. And if someone takes some of what you have, and I'm paraphrasing now, and they split the atom to the left and creates nuclear fission instead of nuclear fusion. Nuclear fission, splitting the atom to the left, which is the wrong way, is what perishes and destroys worlds, or planets, excuse me, because worlds aren't destroyed, planets are. There are a lot of planets that were in existence in this particular galaxy, and everybody gets to the point of what you call the atomic age. And the atomic age is where you start experimenting with the atom. And you can only split the atom one of 2 ways. So if you split the atom the wrong way, there goes your whole reality. It's important to continue to comport and walk a specific path. But the further you get on that path, the more is going to be called for you to be in uniform and in tandem with what is required with the depth of how far you are on the path. You can't do things willy-nilly, and things have to have a certain set of decorum. This is why the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension is separated by a barrier, because you don't belong in the 7th dimension. You belong here. You're supposed to be here. The duat is separated from the divine world, because the people who did not practice in life and connect with certain beings that will claim them at the end of their last physical breath, you have to go to the duat for reprocessing. But then the people that started working in life while they were breathing the prana of the sun and start connecting with these beings consciously, now they have a doorway that opens up to them, and they could possibly get on. Not only that, but your consciousness has to transform, because consciousness is something that dictates where you're going to go when you leave here. You start practicing it in your dream and in your meditations. But from what I see, there's a lot of people that aren't doing that, because they're putting all of their attention in the wake state and not much preface in what they do when they put their eyes down and basically experiment where they're going. So if people don't remember their dreams, or if people have fuzziness in their dreams, that means that's an indicator of exactly what will happen when you cease to continue to breathe. You will go back into that state. But if your dreams are extremely clear and you can walk through your dreams and you're conscious and bring this consciousness there, that's a great indicator that you have succeeded in being able to traverse in where you deserve to. But I don't want to go off on a tangent.
Man, you went and hit a lot of different points in that bill just now. And even to the point that, my very first question that I initially wrote for you was about profanity. Taking what I consider to be a profanity pledge. I hope that Red is on this. I need him to hear this. I wanted you to speak to the sanctity of utilizing profanity and how that may block other channels of communication on a spiritual level, and I also wanted you to speak to it in terms of global artistry. When these artists are traveling the world,
Right.
how are they being received when they use vernacular that's considered to be profanity, especially in countries like the UAE or Dubai, where they have restrictions on how you can use your tongue, because the West has you marvel to think that you can go and say anything anywhere around the world, and that's not the case. I'll pause.
Right. Well, let's deal with what happens when you use explicatives like the F bomb or the sugar honey iced tea. Sometimes the punctuation of that verbiage at a certain time, the oxytocin of its contort out of your mouth, it feels good because it highlights the need of expression in a very unique way. But what happens when you do that is, let's get back to the etymology of the meaning. Because of the way the F bomb, most of the time when people use the F bomb, it is not in an endearing way. The original energy and origin of that word, and because of the feeling that has gone into every time it has been used, it creates a bank of energy that caustically affects you every time you use it. No matter whether or not you mean it in an endearing term or not, there's a bank of energy that has been poured into by people for over 100 years, way before you even knew what the word was. So that energy curses you before it even punctuates the meaning of why you used it in the first place. And in terms of, it's not something that you could overturn just because you say, well, I didn't mean it like that. It doesn't matter. The meaning of the energy of its origin has already infected you for 72 hours. You will not be able to use a hekau or a divine utterance or a particular mantra or word of power or sequence of power or divine commanded power, because if you do try to use that energy will distort, and now you're basically punching a clock of negative karma of everything that was created by that distortion. So that's something that I teach in terms of using words of power. In terms of on the world stage, when people use those explicatives, again, there's no one that really is impugned by the end result of what that means, unless you really are someone that is versed as a high priest or an alchemist. And there are things that you have already done, like long vows of silence, certain sacred things where you have sacrificed certain things to bypass you to those actual physical laws of repercussions and ramifications of using that. I haven't taught people how to do that because I think the basics are important first. So when I had to learn how to uncurse, it took me 3 months, Blue. It took me 3 months to discipline myself, to hear myself speak and get all of the explicatives out of my vernacular. Then when I saw how the words of power actually do work through a very specific set of acumen, why would I continue to curse when I could use words of power and it does all of these things for me? I didn't really go backwards. So that's the benefit of it. It always affects the individual first. You can't bless someone without blessing yourself first. You also cannot curse someone without cursing yourself first. A lot of times people feel, well, I didn't feel anything. My house didn't burn down. But you also create a wasteland where all of those negative thoughts, energies, actions, and deeds go into. And when it spills over out of the chalice of your personal wasteland, a lot of times it's something that you may not live through. If you look at, I'm going to say Meg Thee Stallion. Meg Thee Stallion is someone who has botted her way into success. I think Spotify allegedly, and all of this is alleged, right? So, don't get mad. But 30 million streams, you got caught trying to trick people into thinking that you were something that you weren't. Do you not think that that has a repercussion? When people fudge their numbers and want people to think that they have 10 million followings, but then when you go on their post and you see that there's only 5 likes, but you have 1 million followers, oh, you fudged your numbers. You wanted people to think that you had a larger following than what you had. Now, for people who are somewhat erudite and intermediate, they're looking at you now, looking at your character. Well, why would you do that? Why do you want people to think that you're something that you're not? These are the things that come into bear when collectively people may not tell you, but they have their silent thoughts. When you look at J-Lo, allegedly, and the things that she is alleged to have done in terms of indiscriminately taking people's lyrics and pontificating it as her own, now everything she does is met with a backlash. That's a masterclass on its own. And all of this stuff goes back into who is the character of the being that I am following? Why would I follow them if their character is flawed? The basic mechanics of who they are, how they keep or not keep their word, how they do certain things, that very much goes into how people feel about you and how they deal with you, and how your environment and how your beings also decide not to deal with you because they see you have not built your character to a point where they can entrust you with their power. When you look at pastors, preachers,
Yes.
and a lot of the musicians are out there, they're one and the same. They control a large audience. They are a Pied Piper. But unfortunately, artistry is there is a dichotomy with that. If someone gives an artist $40 million and makes her the Pied Piper and says, now I want you to go out there and I want you to create a following and you come out with this album. And, we know of a Latina, I'm not going to say her name, but her name begins with a C. And she says whatever comes to her mind, and she can't seem to keep her family together. She has a lovely, beautiful, beautiful children. And I guess she has a level of talent, but she's being used as a pawn and she doesn't see it. But she is under the guise or the title of being an artist. But what's happening is she's piping a lot of young ladies, a lot of girls are patterning themselves after her bad behavior, her lack of decorum. And because she is someone who's been given a lot of money and people are following her, she's leading people down a downward spiral. And she's calling herself a liberator of women. There's a few women that are doing that. So they'll throw a lot of money at you and say, hey, do this, talk about drugs, talk about sex. Meanwhile, the fallout or the repercussion of that is you'll get a lot of these children to have children out of wedlock, to just have indiscriminate sex now. And also there's a drug culture that's in tandem with that. But this person who was the artist is going to get the karmic backlash that's associated with her or them being the Pied Piper and leading people down a particular, I call it trap music because I see it as a trap. It's something that's being weaponized against our people first, because you have other people that are able to tap in and dance to it and have a good time, and then they go back into their position in society and they can look, and we're the only people that are trying to live out a thought form that is not real. It's a mirage. It's foolish. So we have to be careful with the word artist, because the things that come with artists.